Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's first story is a classic case of a power-tripping manager learning the hard way that not everyone's afraid to walk away. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Manager tried to hold my job over my head. When I was younger, I got a part-time job at a food store we would call No Skills. At the time, minimum wage was $5.15 an hour, and they paid $9 an hour if you worked graveyards. That was killer money, so I worked graveyards Friday and Saturday nights during the school year. I got in at 8 p.m. and left about 7 in the morning. Black Friday was coming up in about a month, and my friends like to go out and shop around for fun. I requested to leave early at 10 a month in advance, which was approved by the cool manager I'll call Charlie. That night comes, and the a-hole manager's working. We'll call him Dave. Dave decided to give the night off to 2 other employees, leaving us very short-staffed. I, of course, requested my time off a month ago, so whatever, not my issue. I get into work and let him know I'm leaving at 10, just as a reminder. His response was, "We'll see how far along we are by then and see." I didn't like how he phrased that, but I thought, whatever, I'm leaving either way. So it's about 9:50, I'm working my butt off stocking shelves to get as much done as possible and go to let him know I'm leaving. He stares at me and says we're far behind and I can't leave and to come ask him at 11 instead. I tell him no, I have plans, and took it off, so I'm heading out. He starts to grumble to himself, gives this little speech about how everyone else will have to stay super late if I go, yada yada yada. I say I'm still leaving. I took it off a month ago, so it was known well in advance. He stares at me and tells me if I leave, I shouldn't bother coming back and that I'll be fired. High school me says that's not fair and whatnot. Then he just says I can stay or lose my job. This job is just so I can have spending money, but he seems to think I'm like some other staff who actually need the job and can be bullied around. I just tell him, okay, I quit, and start to walk away. He tried to say something, but he just mumbled as he had no idea what to say. He never expected me to actually leave. The next day, Charlie calls me up and apologizes for what happened and asks if I really wanted to quit. I told him no and about what happened. He assured me Dave would leave me alone and had been talked to. I later found out he was also no longer allowed to approve time off anymore since he left the store so short-handed and the morning crew actually has to help stock the shelves because it still wasn't done. Bonus story. I did stay working there and over the summer went full-time. A buddy of mine was jealous of the money I made and also got a job there working graveyards with me. Part of the job is facing the aisles before leaving to make it all look pretty. The whole team would tackle the aisles together so we can talk while doing it. With my buddy being new, we played a little joke and told him that part of facing included shaking all the salad dressings as they would settle during the day. We left him to it and moved on, and about 2 aisles later we noticed he's still not with us, and Charlie, who would help us face when his duties were done, asked where he was. We told him the joke and went back to check on him. To our amazement, he was with the dressings, shaking them, and had already shaken most of them already. We figured he was being a smart butt and was doing it so he didn't have to face, but when we told him it was a joke, he got pretty PO'd, which made it even funnier. Where is everyone? They're gone, Dave. Who is? Everyone, Dave. Hang on, are you telling me everyone's gone? And our second story. Tourists refuse to stop taking pics of my private home. I live in a small town on the coast of North Carolina with my husband and kids. The town's about 300 years old and it's maintained historical buildings and traditions to promote tourism and historical interest. Our house is, in my opinion, quite beautiful. Google the Hamptons White House, it's almost identical to that house. As it's a historical area, there are numerous tours to see the old cemetery, jail, courthouse, various historical homes. Blackbeard once graced our town, and his ship is actually sunken off the coast. Our house is near the historical district, but our neighborhood is new and our house is not part of the history. A couple days ago, I let my kids go out and play in the sprinkler in the front yard while I cleaned, and after a while I noticed people leaning on my fence with their phones out, so I went out to investigate. They said they were walking the historical trail, and my house was so pretty they wanted photos. I pointed out that the historical path is 3 blocks up, and those properties have large plaques denoting their historical value. They said, okay, but my house was so nice they couldn't resist and didn't want to pay for the tour. I pointed out my kids were very obviously playing and they were half dressed in their swimsuits and their photos had been taken and that the house was obviously a private home. I added I wanted the photos deleted as I didn't want my kids' photos going off with them when they're in their bathing suits. If we'd been out in public, it would have been different, but this is my home behind a fence. I asked how they would have felt if I followed them home and did what they were doing. They argued with me for a few minutes. They told me they wouldn't delete the photos, and if I wanted privacy, I should have built a taller fence. They kept taking photos, so I went to go back inside, but as I did, I stopped and turned on the sprinklers next to the fence. They were soaked. While they did nothing wrong legally, as you can have no expectation of privacy in your front yard, it's certainly annoying. Turning on the sprinklers on your own property is also perfectly legal, though it's unfortunate for passers-by who may be standing in front of them while you do so. And our next story. Always open the windows. A bit of backstory first. I work as the head maintenance person in a school in my city, in Canada, and to say I have my hands full is an understatement. The school is 99 years old, turning 100 in July. It's been updated over the years, but the building is made out of brick, and I'm constantly trying to adjust the hydronic heating system throughout the day as the building soaks up heat and keeps it. As an attempt to mitigate the heat, I've found that opening all the windows in the school first thing in the morning before the staff comes in, and they can open or close the windows as they wish. Now, where I am, our weather's pretty weird, and yesterday it was cold, as it had been 30 plus Celsius Monday and Tuesday, and yesterday was sitting at 4 Celsius with a wind chill that brought it to 0. So considering the temperature inside the school was sitting at 10 Celsius, I opted to not open the windows that morning and perform my morning routine. Well, apparently the principal, my supervisor for the building, felt I had made the wrong decision and ripped me a new one, telling me to always open the windows from now on. Cue malicious compliance. Before leaving, I confirmed that he indeed wanted them open regardless of the outside temperature, including the next day, Friday, today, and a day with no students. He said yes, and if any staff had issues, I was to get them to complain to him and motion me to leave his office. So today I got up and checked the weather before going into work. It said it was currently -1 degree Celsius and -4 degrees Celsius with the wind. On top of that, we got snow. The entire trip to work, I have this evil grin on my face, and as soon as I get in, I rush to open every window in the school, even the vents for the bathrooms. And I continued with my morning routine, pleased with what I did. Now, since there weren't any classes that day, the majority of staff didn't even show up until 10:30, 3 hours since I'd opened the windows, and it was very cold inside the school, and all of a sudden I get a bunch of texts from staff about their cold rooms. I proceed to tell every single one of them what the principal had said, and shortly after I'm called to his office. As soon as I open the door, I can tell that he is very angry and very cold and demands to know why I opened all the windows this morning. All I get to say is, well, yesterday you said, and he calmly says, wait. Now I'm known for being a smart butt at work, and between being maliciously compliant and getting petty revenge on people, I've apparently built up a name for myself within the entirety of all 50 schools in my school board. My union reps love me. He now realizes that he's effed up and starts laughing about it. He admits he screwed up his wording, and he's been having a rough couple of days, and apparently this made his week, and says how he's going to leave it to me to decide when the windows should be opened. We both had a very good laugh, and he ended up buying the staff lunch. After the teachers heard what happened, they all bugged him a bit, but it was all in fun. In the end, we all had some fun and a good laugh, but I also have some other stories from the same job, or even some from my others in retail/pawnbrokering. I even have some from school, including one where I was told to hold it in. And if anybody's interested, I'm willing to share. If there are any formatting errors, I'm sorry. I don't usually post stuff this long. Hopefully you enjoyed my bit of fun from today. What a most excellent ending. I love people who can acknowledge their mistakes and laugh about it. I mean, he acknowledged being human and having a bad day too, and making a mistake. Sounds like a good boss. And our last story. My neighbor thought he could steal my land, Now he has a criminal record. I had a delusional neighbor who somehow convinced himself that all the surrounding land belonged to him. His actual property was tiny, but for some reason he believed that mowing my lawn every single day gave him some kind of legal ownership over it. At first I thought he was just an annoying busybody, but then he took it a step further. He actually drafted up fake documents claiming that the city had transferred my property to him. The man had the nerve to hand me these papers with a smug look on his face, acting like he just won a lawsuit I didn't even know I was in. Unfortunately for him, I have a lawyer on retainer who took one look at the paperwork and laughed his butt off. Not only was it completely fraudulent, but trying to use those documents to claim someone else's land was illegal. When I confronted my neighbor about it, he tried to act innocent, mumbling something about how he thought the city had transferred it to him because he'd been taking care of it. Sure, buddy, because that's how property ownership works. But instead of backing off, he doubled down. Since he couldn't scam his way into taking my land, he decided he was going to force me out instead. The next time I walked outside, I noticed that my car was missing. Confused, I checked my security cameras, and what I saw made my blood boil. My psychotic neighbor had actually climbed into my car, broken the clutch, and then pushed it into the alley so he could call a tow truck and have it removed. He wanted it gone because he'd been eyeing my driveway for extra parking space. This wasn't some petty dispute over a few inches of lawn anymore. He was actively vandalizing my property and trying to get my belongings removed. And he wasn't done yet. His equally deranged wife started calling the city on repeat, trying to get the rest of my vehicles towed off my own property. Meanwhile, every time I ran into them, they acted like nothing was wrong, waving and smiling like we were old friends. Iowan passive-aggressiveness at its absolute worst. But I had a plan. Instead of waiting for the city to act, I called my own tow company first. I had them pick up my car and take it to a mechanic to get repaired. In the meantime, my neighbor and his wife were celebrating like they'd just pulled off the scam of the century. They were outside laughing, clinking drinks together, and congratulating themselves on finally getting my car removed. I let them enjoy their little victory, because they had no idea what was coming next. A week later, my fully repaired car was towed right back into my driveway, and guess who came along with it? The police. Breaking into someone's car, damaging it, and having it towed without permission is a crime. And since they'd also forged documents in an attempt to steal my land, the cops had plenty of reasons to arrest them right there in their driveway. They didn't see it coming. As soon as the officer stepped out of their patrol car, my neighbor's smug expression vanished. He tried to act confused, saying it was all a misunderstanding, but the police weren't buying it. They let him know in no uncertain terms that he and his wife were being arrested for trespassing, vandalism, and attempted fraud. His wife started screaming about how they were the real victims and that I was harassing them, but it didn't matter. They were put in cuffs and shoved into the back of a squad car while I stood there watching with the biggest grin on my face. After their arrest and subsequent court case, they moved out a few months later. I don't know if it was because they were too embarrassed to stay or if they simply couldn't deal with the legal consequences of their stupidity, but I didn't care. My land is mine once again, my property safe, and my driveway's completely free of entitled a-holes trying to steal it. I mean, on one hand, you don't have to mow the lawn. On the other hand, you have a crappy neighbor thinking your house is now his property. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.